All right, we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our second segment. But before we do that, I would ask you again to please like and follow the show. Donate if you can, gsmcpodcast.net. It really does help me, really does help everyone here at the show, at the network as well. So thank you so much for that. And let's get into our second segment here. So the second segment we will be talking about is Devin Williams and the news that broke that he is injured and is going to miss, most likely, as what they put it, 3 months of the season. That is give or take. It could be more, it could be less. We're not really sure, but we think that's what it's going to be around. Obviously, Jeff Passan said it, and I'd say he knows what he's talking about. The impact on the Brewers here, I'll tell you right now, it's not good. It's not good to lose one of your better players, lose a guy like Devin Williams who, has really grown into that closer's role, was one of the better setup men in the league when the Brewers did have Josh Hader before they traded him. And I think he, once they traded Hader to San Diego, I think that's, kind of been the way for Devin Williams to come back here and kind of, not come back, but kind of show what he's made of, kind of show himself as a guy who, is a closer in this league, is one of the top closers in this league, and I think he's done really well in that role. Now, I don't think it's horrible for the Brewers. Again, losing your star closer is never good, and I think also going off that is the trade part of it. A lot of rumors were swirling around that Devin Williams would be traded at the deadline, or maybe even in the offseason, or even in the season if it came to that, with the Brewers kind of rebuilding. They traded Mark Canha. They didn't really do much this offseason. They traded Corbin Burns as well, of course. So Brandon Woodruff's going to be out most of the year. So I think it was kind of a writing on the wall that, okay, we might be rebuilding. And that's what set off trade rumors for Devin Williams, for Willy Adames. And I think the big impact on the Brewers here, just off, we're going to talk about on the field after, of course, but off the field, I think they were looking to trade him, and I think he would have been a great piece for any team to add at the trade deadline with a year and a half of control at the deadline. A guy who is shown to be one of the best closers in this league, has one of the best pitches in this league, if not the best, with his airbender changeup. And I think getting a really great prospect package back for a guy like Devin Williams would have been a great thing, and something that would have really helped the franchise out in this time period with them. So I think it affects them that way because they were probably looking to get some prospects off of Devin Williams, being such a good player he is. But obviously, that's not going to happen, and he isn't going to be pitching for 3 months. We don't know what's going to happen when he returns. We don't know what the rehab's going to look like. We don't know if he's going to be on a pitch limit or something like that. So definitely something to watch. See how he does come back from it, and become Devin Williams again. So the injury is a stress fracture in his back. That's never good. Stress fractures are never good, especially your back as a pitcher. You put a lot of momentum on your back with your pitching windup. So I think there is a possibility of a long-term injury here, like just kind of ailing him throughout his career. I think back injuries are really not good for athletes in general. Just today we saw Ben Simmons, who's a basketball player, obviously for the Brooklyn Nets. His career's kind of been shorthanded by his back injuries. He's had another season-ending back injury today, which we saw about with the Nets season-ending back injury. So I think it's definitely a negative here for Devin Williams, and definitely not something you look forward to as a Brewers fan. But I definitely don't think it's the end of the world for you guys. I, again, wasn't predicting to be that good anyways. So it's not horrible. And also, it's a bullpen arm. And what we've seen at the past few years is that bullpen arms are replaceable. Just looking at their depth chart right now, they have a lot of good bullpen arms. So if you were going to lose any star on your team, I'd probably want it to be your closer, or reliever in this case, because he's both a closer and a reliever. So, they have guys like Trevor McGill, Abner Uribe, who has great stuff, by the way. DL Hall, I don't think they'll be using him as a reliever, but if it does come to that, if he does flame out as a starter, I think that could be an option. Aaron Ashby, Hobie Milner, Joel Pampas, Payampa, sorry, and Brian Hudson. Like, these guys are all good relievers that could definitely fill in with the Devin Williams role. And I think one thing about smart organizations like this, like the Brewers, is that you can always find good relievers. You can always make some starter, some guy who kind of failed in his role, to be a good reliever. Relievers aren't that hard to find. So I think if you're going to lose anyone who's kind of notable in your team, you'd rather it be Devin Williams than a guy like William Contreras or Christian Yelich or a Willie Adames, someone like that, Sal Frelick. So it's not the end of the world for the Brewers, but again, I just think it's another thing that's showing me I don't think they're going to be very good. Overall, I'm not a fan of this team. Their ace right now is Freddie Peralta, who is a fine pitcher. I know a lot of people have him as a breakout candidate now, but I'm just not really buying into that yet. And after that, even if he does become a breakout candidate, let's say, you only really have Wade Miley after him, and then kind of some question marks. Guys like DL Hall, who I mentioned before, as someone you're going to rely on as a starting pitcher after trading Burns. Jacob Junis, Colin Ray, Robert Gasser, Joe Ross, Jansen Junk. Like, these guys are not real starting pitchers, guys that you can fully rely on. So I wasn't really high on the Brewers anyways, and I think this just takes my my negative feelings on this team right now to a different aspect. So not a fan of the team right now, and this Devin Williams injury doesn't really help them. And again, I think the trade situation as well, I think they were probably going to trade him sooner rather than later anyways, but I think that does affect it. I think we're maybe looking at a next offseason trade candidate now. I don't think anyone's going to trade for him at the deadline after being hurt. So, that's something else to look at here. And now just going over where I think they could be for the NL and the NL Central. As of right now, I think they're probably going to finish in fourth in that division. Looking at the teams there, first you have the Reds, who, maybe I might be knowing about the Reds at this point, but I love this team. I think they're a really good young team. I think they're going to win the Central. I love all their young talent. I love their pitching that they added this offseason. So I think they are the number one team in the Central right now. And right behind them, I think, is the Cubs. I think the Cubs had a good, not great offseason, but still enough to get them to the second seed in the NL Central and be a team that is going to be competitive for the playoffs. So, I like what they did this offseason, and I have those as the two top teams right now in the Central. And above them as well, I also have the Cardinals. I think it's very close with them, but I think the Cardinals' hitting core and the sheer talent on that core is going to make them better. Again, they're pitching so many question marks. Sonny Gray, who's really good, but is going to be is probably not going to pitch on opening day. Miles Michaelis, who, fine. Lance Lynn, old. Kyle Gibson, old. Steven Matz, just been a disaster since coming over to St. Louis with that contract. So definitely a lot of question marks with the Cardinals. And you may say, okay, I understand they have a great hitting core, but their pitching is nothing. We saw this last year, and yes, they added to it, but it's not significant adds. We saw that their pitching was bad last year, and they finished, really low in that division. So how is this different from last year? And I would agree with you, but I would also say how is the Brewers pitching any better? You have Freddie Peralta, Wade Miley, and that's kind of it for established guys. Do I think DL Hall is going to come on the scene right away and pitch to be a great pitcher? No, I think he'll be a fine pitcher. I think he'll be good in the future, but not this year. I don't know about Wade Miley. I don't know what's going to go on with his injury stuff. I don't know if his age is going to be a factor in this as well. So I'm not very high on the Brewers right now. I could even argue that they should be fifth behind the Pirates, who made some moves this offseason. We have a lot of young talent coming through the ranks. So I'm definitely not a fan of the Brewers where they are right now. I would have them as fourth in the NL Central. I had them as that before, so it wasn't like a crazy thing that I'm saying right now that they're fourth in the Central. But I think it just shows how far they've fallen off, considering they just won the Central this year. They did lose in two, but they've made a lot of changes, specifically Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff being out the entire year. So, not a fan of this Padres team. This Brewers team, sorry, had Dylan Cease on the brain. And I'm definitely not high in them. And I think this Devin Williams injury is just another factor of this, because what we've known about the Brewers the past few years is, Their hitting might be lacking, but their starting pitching is always going to be great, and their bullpen's always going to be great with Devin Williams and Hader in the back. Well, you don't have Devin Williams now for a few months. You obviously don't have Josh Hader. Your pitching's depleted with both your ace guys that you've known for the past few years not being out there, not being with you. So I'm not very high on this Brewers team for this year. I think they have a nice future. I think you have building blocks there like Jackson Chourio, of course, Sal Frelick, William Contreras. Christian Yelich is always going to be there, of course. So I think there's a lot to look forward to in the future with this Brewers team. But right now, I'm just not a fan, and I don't think there's much that can do to change that. So definitely not high on them. Definitely not expecting them to make the playoffs. Again, fourth in the Central right now. Maybe even a top five bottom team in the NL. I mean, as right now, the teams I would only say are worse are probably the Marlins, the Nationals. I'd also say the Pirates, of course, are worse, and the Rockies, of course, are worse. But, I mean, that's really it. I mean, you can even argue the Marlins are better with their pitching. So, not a fan of the Brewers this year. Devin Williams' injury doesn't help. And, maybe I'll be proven wrong, and we'll see that they're not going into a rebuilding phase, and it's more of a retooling, and they're going to compete. But we'll see until then. And, that's my thoughts on the Brewers and the Devin Williams injury. So, that's our second segment here. We're going to go to our third segment, which is going to be about Adam Duvall and him heading back to Atlanta. But first, we're going to go to a break here before that, and we'll talk about it after that. So thanks. See you after that. Bye.